So this past fortnight I've been thoroughly testing out Sony's Xperia 10 and Xperia 10 Plus smartphones. I've already done a full comparison between the two for their specs and various other bits, and now it's time to turn our attention to that camera tech. So here's how the Xperia 10 and the Xperia 10 Plus stack up for photo and video quality, and for all you need to know about the latest and greatest mobile tech, don't forget to poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, even though these Sony phones both boast a dual lens rear camera, it is actually different hardware between the two. The standard Xperia 10 has a 13 megapixel primary lens with an f2.0 aperture, and that's backed by a basic 5 megapixel secondary lens with an f2.4 aperture, which is basically just used for depth sensing. As for the Xperia 10 Plus, this is a 12 megapixel primary lens with an f1.75 aperture, and that's backed by an 8 megapixel f2.4 aperture lens, and this has got a telephoto quality to it, so you can actually get 2 times optical zoom with it. Around the front, however, there's about as much difference between these two phones as there is between Nigel Farage's big fat face and a thick joint of gammon. The Xperia 10 and the 10 Plus both serve up an 8 megapixel f2.0 selfie snapper. So let's start with a photo comparison, and both of Sony's mid-range mobiles grab crisp shots in good conditions. And while you do get finer detail with photos taken on the Xperia 10, you do have to get in pretty close to actually notice the difference. However, there is a clear gulf between these two phones when it comes to standard outdoor shots. The Xperia 10 Plus produces much more natural hues compared with its smaller sibling. This is particularly noticeable when focusing on the sky in these test samples. The standard 10 captures an almost monochrome moodiness, certainly very evocative, but definitely not what you would see with the naked eye. You'll also notice a difference when shooting HDR scenes. The Xperia 10 Plus, with its wider aperture lens, is more effective at capturing detail in those darker areas, and thankfully without blowing out those lighter sections at the same time. Quite often the gap between these phones is rather slim, however, and the Xperia 10 is pretty good for the price, again rarely oversaturating the image. Move indoors and the two Sony phones produce much more similar results. Colours are basically a match with identical tones from both Xperias, even when shooting quite vivid hues. And again, the extra detail from the smaller Xperia 10 is only really obvious when you start cropping in. However, the Xperia 10 Plus is the clear winner when it comes to low light photography. You get much brighter images than the murky snaps taken on the Xperia 10 thanks to the wider aperture, although don't really expect much of a jump in clarity. Look closely at these samples and you'll see that photos taken with both smartphones are generally grainy and lacking in detail once the lights go low. And when it comes to touristy shots of landmarks, the 10 Plus again gets our vote. That telephoto shooter means that you can get close to your subject without budging an inch to grab sharp shots of distant monuments. Now let's move on to some of the other camera features, and at long last Sony's blowers can produce quite nice portrait shots, which is something that they've kind of struggled with up until this point, apart from obviously the XZ2 Premium. There's no difference in the results between the Xperia 10 and the Xperia 10 Plus, although you will need to stand a bit further back from your subject with the Plus model thanks to that telephoto secondary snapper. And you can even shoot portrait shots with the single lens front-facing cameras of the Xperia 10 and 10 Plus as well, which for the most part come out okay, although the bokeh effect is a bit more subdued. Selfies in general come out fine, as long as you don't try anything outlandish, although in low light you will start to struggle, and that screen flash feature don't exactly impress. In fact, it's pretty much the stuff of nightmares. Switch to video and you can shoot up to 4K resolution home movies with that rear setup. Best of all, both of these handsets offer you a choice of the standard 16:9 or that stretched new 21:9 aspect ratio, so you can pose as a bit of a bedroom Martin Scorsese. Detail levels are strong and there's no gap in quality between these Xperias, although the image stabilization at Ultra HD resolution definitely seems a bit smoother on the Plus model, perhaps because it zooms in more and trims the edges more heavily. Both phones can capture some respectable slow motion footage on demand, and there is a small selection of other bonus modes too, but let's just skip over all of that AR gumph, eh? So that right there is how the Sony Xperia 10 and the 10 Plus stack up in terms of their camera tech. Definitely let us know what you think down in the comments below, and don't forget to poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest mobile tech. Cheers!